Hi, I'm Bilkis Bahari and you are watching the interview program. After nearly 3 decades of gaining independence from the former USSR, Kazakhstan now strives to diversify its economy as it no longer plans to rely solely on natural resources as its revenue. As it stepped deeper into the world's limelight, Kazakhstan established the Astana International Financial Center to transform its capital Astana into a globally renowned financial hub in the Central Asia region. But how will AIFC do this? Watch our exclusive interview with the Chief Economist of Astana International Financial Center, Mr. Baurzhan Bektemirov, to find out how this newly established financial agency plans to transform Astana into an international financial center. Thank you for being with us. Today we will talk about AIFC in general and how it plans to transform Kazakhstan's financial and banking industry. Could you tell me please, Mr. Bauer, what is AIFC and what are its objectives?
Well, in general, I think the objective of creating this financial center was to develop the non-banking financial sector, but just financial center in general, because Kazakhstan has always had strong banking sector, but rather underdeveloped financial sector, capital markets or non-banking financial sector. And after the global financial crisis in the past years, the banking sector also had several obstacles, several barriers to develop. And then currently the central bank is working on restructuring the banking sector to improve the banking sector. But since the economy cannot wait till the banking sector is fully recovered, we understood that we have to introduce some policies to improve the non-banking financial sector, to improve the capital markets, to improve other instruments, other industries. At the same time, we see that the big wave and rise of technology. We said that we have to address this upcoming risk to some extent, because if we are falling behind, it will be bad for the economy as well. So the general idea of the AIFC was to create some institute, or rather the number of institutes that would help to develop Kazakhstan financial sector. But we also understood that if we want to start from the very beginning, or if we want to start from something that we had before, there's a difference between starting from the scratch and starting from something that we had before. And we decided we want to start from the scratch. We want to build new institutions instead of trying to reform the old ones. So in a sense, AIFC is also this institutional reform that allowed us to construct new institutions. And I'm talking about rule of law, I'm talking about flexible regulation, and yes, you probably know that we are independent jurisdiction as the AIFC. We have developed the legal framework, which is completely independent from the local legal system, and is based on the English common law, on the principle of English common law. We have developed the independent regulation. We have set up the new institution, we have set up the new infrastructure. I'm talking about the exchange infrastructure, for example. We have set up the new stock exchange. So this is basically a brand new institutional framework in the middle of Astana, which allows us to develop financial sector.
To create and develop the new financial and banking system, is this one of the ways for Kazakhstan to diversify its economy?
Absolutely. I think the capital market is very important, because capital markets allows companies, allows businesses to attract money. And if we want to develop SME, or we want to develop agriculture, or we want to diversify the economy and develop non-traditional, non-mining sectors, we have to have enough financial instruments. And the capital market is the perfect instrument. This is the right instrument. And if you look at the developing countries, you always see that the capital market is playing the more important role in the economy rather than compared to emerging markets. Because banking has always been there. But capital markets, having the liquid capital market, having a very active stock exchange, it's something that we are striving to. It will give us a push for the economy to develop.
Am I right to say that Kazakhstan dreams of becoming the Singapore of Central Asia?
Well, in some sense, yes. I mean, this is more about setting up the new institutions. And if you remember, years ago when Singapore just got independence, they have to build something from scratch. They have to build very strong industries and have very strong institutions. So in this regard, yes, we are striving to be something like Singapore. You also have to understand, there's one caveat though, because we don't want to be the Singapore of 80s or Singapore of 90s. We understand there's a big rise of technology, there's a big rise of the fourth industrial revolution, so we want to be a part of this. So in approach of setting up and catching the latest trend, yes, we are like Singapore, I think.
Why should people invest in Kazakhstan?
Well, there are different reasons. And the companies do invest in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is still a very attractive country. This is a growing country. There's a growing economy. We have been growing. We have been showing positive growth for the past 10, 20 years. If you look at the latest McKinsey, I think that there's a McKinsey Global Institute report when they put Kazakhstan in the category of recent jumpers. That is the economies which outperform U.S. economy in growth for the past, I think, 20 years. So Kazakhstan is on the list. And this shows that Kazakhstan has enormous potential. And obviously, if you look at the capital of the country, we look at the resources, the oil and gas and minerals and agriculture sector, I think there's a big potential. And it is very attractive for investors.
Based on my understanding, as you mentioned earlier, one of the objectives for AIFC is to develop the capital market as well as the Islamic finance in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. So could you please share with us how important is it for Kazakhstan to develop these industries?
So when we first established, were thinking about establishing the AIFC, we looked for the industries which would be our key pillars. And by key pillars, I mean those industries that first have demand from the country, that have demand from the market, and also that we have some anchor projects or some foundation that will help us to develop the sectors. So and there are 5 sectors in general. So development of capital markets, there's asset management, private banking, Islamic finance, and fintech. If we're talking about capital market, I mentioned capital markets is important for the country to have, just to give more instruments for the businesses, for the economy to invest. If you talk about Islamic finance, for example, there's a growing interest in the country. There is a growing interest in the region as a whole, because we have, for example, Uzbekistan, all these countries which are mostly populated by ethnic Muslims and practicing Muslims as well, who are more interested in this specific product. Also, southern parts of Russia, Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, are also interested in that. But then, in addition to Muslims who obviously are interested in Islamic instrument, there are also non-Muslims investors and non-Muslims financial market agents who are interested in Islamic finance, because this provides different risk-sharing mechanism, and this is also could be attractive for both investors, and there's it's decided deal on deal. So there's overall growing demand for this industry, and I think we can become the local regional center for that. Obviously, it will be hard to compete with Malaysia, or it will be hard to compete with Middle East, but then the globe is big, and then our region itself is quite big, and I think we can become the regional platform for that.
AIFC has also been very active in working together with financial companies from New York, Shanghai, Malaysia, and Singapore, for example. So how important is it for Kazakhstan to work with these countries to reform its financial sector?
Well, I think the answer is obvious. It is very important, and then because we need strong partners that will bring technology, that bring know-how, that would also help to establish this institutional framework. For example, if we're talking about stock exchange, with stock exchange we have signed a partnership. This is not even just MOUs, it's a real partnership with Shanghai Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, for example. So NASDAQ is providing technology. We are deploying the best, the most modern exchange infrastructure here in Kazakhstan. We are, Shanghai, for example, has become our shareholder. They invested about 25% of our stock exchange. So they are they're interested in developing business here, because this is their investment. They are interested, for example, in bringing their clientele, their capital, their liquidity. And if Shanghai can bring their liquidity, it will be a huge boost for our economy, for our stock exchange. We hope that it will happen. We're working on that and to make it happen. For example, if we're talking about different MOUs with different companies, that it's important for them to come here and actually set up their offices here. So we're talking, for example, about not even MOUs, about registration at the AIFC. Just recently, I think these days, we have the China's Development Bank opening an official representative office here at the AIFC. And this is the bank which invests billions of dollars in the region, $20 billion US in the region. So this is a very important player. This is important both as a big investor, but also as our entry to the global financial market. So I think for that, in that regard, it is very important. I think what we're doing here is also bringing this international players, bringing expertise, money, everything they can, a foreign company bring, we're bringing here to Kazakhstan.
Recently, AIFC has also signed a partnership with the World Islamic Economic Forum. Could you please shed some details regarding the upcoming event?
So this is a very important event for us because this is the global. This is basically the most important Islamic finance event in the world. This is, some call it Islamic Davos. And this is important that it's happening here in Kazakhstan because we want to develop Islamic finance. But in addition to the WEIF, I think this is only part of our larger agenda. So what we will have in July, we'll have on July 5th, we'll have the official grand opening, the grand launch of the AIFC. This is also obviously the day of Astana. This is 20th anniversary of Astana. This is a very important day for all of us. And we'll have a so-called Astana Finance Days. It will be a 2-day conference on different topics, on capital markets, on asset management, on fintech, on English common law, on Islamic finance. International Investors Day will be here in Kazakhstan, also around the States. So this is, for us, very important because this is just opening to the market, just saying and inviting all the experts, all the key people in financial industry to Kazakhstan, to Astana, to celebrate this very important event for us, and to also share their experience, share their knowledge, listen to their recommendations, listen to what they can have to say about us. So, for example, for the World Islamic Economic Forum, we are expecting the head of some states. Hopefully, we can also have people from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from Islamic Development Bank, from other financial institutions, Islamic financial institutions around the world. And this is the biggest event. And this is just saying that Astana is part of this market. Astana would welcome working with these partners. Astana will partner with these financial institutions, and that could also bring investment to country. So, for example, in June we also expect, this year we also expect the offering of sovereign bonds, Sukuk sovereign bonds. This is the thing. This is important time because this is big offering of Islamic financial instruments, sovereign Islamic financial instruments. But in addition to that, we have also different tracks. We'll have a conference on fintech. We'll have the conference on just the global finance about connectivity. We'll definitely have a conference on Belt and Road Initiative, because Belt and Road Initiative by Chinese government, it was proposed by Chinese government, was first announced here in Kazakhstan. So this is important for Kazakhstan in general. This is important for us because we think that investment infrastructure can be a separate even asset class.
Which sectors are the most promising for the foreign investors?
Well, there are traditional sectors like mining, oil and gas, metals, agriculture. I think agriculture, for example, is very, very potentially blooming industry because we have a lot of people employed in the sector and very little outcome yet. But in addition to these traditional sectors, I think tourism is also one of this. There are also new sectors like fintech, for example. We want to become the Central Asia capital for fintech, and we have done certain improvements to become one. For example, we are introducing new regulation. We have the sandbox regulation for fintech. We're running a few acceleration program. We're running a program, for example, with the Swiss VC fund, Seed Stars, and there's the whole program at the AIFC aimed at developing the tech industry. And at the same time, the government is doing the same thing with Astana Hub, with the startup hub, also at the expo site, like next to AIFC. I think this is also a promising sector for the country.
I understand that AIFC has set up the AIFC Courts and the Arbitration Center based on the English financial law. So could you shed some light on the Courts and Arbitration Center, and why do you choose English law?
Well, the idea, as I said, to develop this sound legal system, and with sound legal system you have to have some credentials, because people who come to Kazakhstan, they have to trust the system. That's why we said that we want to develop the financial court, which will be based on the best practices. We have established that, also the arbitration center. We have invited judges from UK. Our Chief Justice, for example, is Lord Wolf, and he used to be the Chief Justice for England and Wales. So one of our judges, Lord Fox, for example, he is a former UK Prime Minister of Justice. There are very high-level people involved in setting up this court and arbitration center. And I think this is important because this is, I guess, the very first and very important, and the most important value proposition we give to foreign partners. This is the rules of the game are the same as they have in London, New York, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc., in Dubai, for example. So yeah, so I think this is what we have done.
All the best.
Thank you.
For the event. So that's the time that we have today. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Bauer. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Let me remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Kazakh TV, and you can also watch all our episodes on our website, www.kazakh-tv.kz. See you in the next The Interview program.